So I'm going to share with you today a little bit of the story behind my why. So when I was just 8 years old, I migrated from Venezuela to the United States with my mother for what many call the American dream, leaving everything that we knew behind for a new chance at life, for a new beginning in a new country. I remember during my early beginnings, I always had this natural fascination for art and design. I particularly remember that in school, I was nominated as Mrs. Picasso and winning multiple Best Artist awards in my category. You see, during my free time, you will always find me expressing myself by building forts and tree houses in the woods, always competing with the neighborhood boys and who would have the best tree house. Or you would often find me digging in dumpsters, looking for lost treasures so I can complete my masterful designs. Well, this little girl was me, this mischievous, free-spirited, young little tomboy who had an immense curiosity for the world. But as many know, we grow up, we get older, we are confronted with the adult life. So during this phase of my life, it kind of looked like this. So I remember during these days that I was working at a 9-to-5 job at a call center, which I absolutely despised. Every day I remember walking into that building, I would sit at my desk, I would turn on the computer and put on my headset, and I just felt I was eating away my soul. I was in complete disconnection with myself. I constantly doubted everything in my life. And I felt that I had settled for less because what I longed for was too massive of a dream, or that my aspirations were utopian. You see, guys, I was actually living a very mediocre life because it was comfortable and it was easy. I was living in this perpetual pain. My father would often have these courageous conversations with me, and he would say, "Feita," my childhood nickname, "what are you doing working at a call center? You have so many gifts. You have so many talents." And as you probably guess, I became really good at coming up with excuses and justifications to cover up the deeper pain. I would often answer to him, "Dad, it pays the bills. It has good benefits. It has 401k. That should make you happy, right? The 401k. Until one day, something very unexpected happened in my life. Life took me on this soul journey. So my official story started on March 1st, 2011, on my 22nd birthday. You see, during this time, I was planning to go on my first cruise ever in my entire life for my birthday with the two men that I loved most, my father and my boyfriend, who was soon to be my fiance at the time. And as the excitement started to build for these days, my first cruise to Cozumel, Mexico, 2 weeks before, my father calls me, and in a very apologetic voice, he tells me, "Feita, I'm not able to make it because of financial matters with the business, and it requires me to stay." And then very charismatically, because he's a very funny guy, he laughs over the phone and he says, "But don't worry, we'll make some plans in November. We'll plan for something super exciting." So, as always, I, supported my father and I understood. So on March 7th, I returned back from the cruise. I came back to the port of Tampa, and I remember so clearly as I am loading the car and I sat in the back seat, I received the most unexpected phone call of my life. see, this phone call came from my brother Gabriel. And I could tell by his voice that something was wrong. So when I answered and he finally uttered that final message, he said to me, "Sister, our father didn't make it." He passed away on the surgery table. And I remember sitting in the back seat in complete disbelief because I couldn't understand what I was hearing, 24 hours after hearing my father's voice sing to me Las Mañanitas, a group of men entered the business and shot him. A bullet penetrated his liver to a degree of no repair, and he endured several surgeries, but his body couldn't handle it anymore. And on his third, he didn't make it. My father passed away on March 7, 2011. And every time I'm reminded of that story and I go back, I feel that he waited for me. That he waited as much as he could for my return. So as I heard this excruciating news from my brother, I remember feeling that those same bullets that pierced through him had pierced through me. And that even though I didn't physically die, every part of me died on that day. What I didn't know at the time was that that was also the day that I was reborn. That was the day that I was reborn. I remember that every part, every inch of my life pivoted. I was changing the blueprint to my life. Shortly after I came back from the funeral, I came back to the United States. I quit my job. I ended my long-term relationship, and I decided to move on my own. That was the day that I met Gabrimar Riveros, me. You see, the universe was forcing me to find myself. It was giving me a gift. And even though I lost someone who I profusely love, in a moment's time, a new purposeful beginning was unfolding. I was being born again. I had found my mission through my passion. And for the first time, I followed my father's advice. He saved me. There's a quote that reads that what you do for yourself dissolves the day that you die. But what you do for others transforms into your legacy. So shortly after my father passing, I devoted myself to my life mission. I decided to go back to school. And I graduated with honors at my university. This is my family, my mom. And that's my little brother. He was very, very upset because he wanted to graduate that day. Can you tell? And shortly after that, I opened my own design business. So that was monumental for me. Until one day, I remember I was sitting on my mother's sofa, and I was sitting alone having coffee. And for some reason on this particular day, I was reminded of her journey. I was reminded of everything that she left behind, everything that she sacrificed for me, for a new life, for something different. And in that moment, I recall all of these memories my mom used to share with me about how in Venezuela, all of the neighbors used to gather together to watch the soap opera, the novela. I don't know if you heard those. They're really famous. And they were gathered together because there was only one television. Could you imagine? Like 10, 15 people watching a soap opera together? Or they would gather together in the afternoon for coffee. And this became the highlight of the day. You see, these memories made me realize the suffering that my mother endured from disconnection, for longing for community, and how she would often feel alone. That even after 10 years in living in her neighborhood in Tampa, Florida, she only knew few of her neighbors because everyone was living in the bubble of their own lives. You see, we live in a time where disconnection has become the plague of our lives. And as technology increases, it's only going to get worse. So while I was having coffee and I was sitting there, I had a vision. I had an epiphany. I literally had a vision of like the future. I don't know how to describe it. It was like the most miraculous thing. And I understood that family and community means everything. I saw how I can utilize architecture to solve for the deep disconnection that we have within our culture. And in that moment, I felt compelled to find a solution for more meaning, more community, more fulfillment. That was 4 years ago. And since then, I've been working on this concept called Art Box Modular. I've been working with a dedicated team of people. And that is when Art Box Modular was born, with this delineated mission, a journey to connect the world through prefabricated architecture and smart home technology. And today, I just want to share briefly a little bit of the big changes that are happening in our culture that are making us rethink how we look at residential architecture. So the first and the most important is the housing population crisis. You see, before, it used to take 124 years to reach 1 billion in population. Now it only takes 12 years to reach that same number. So what does that mean in architecture? You see, what it means is that we can't build homes fast enough in order to meet our population demand. See, we need to rethink how we build and harness the powers of robotics and sensible design so construction is more efficient, affordable, and sustainable.
Today's millennials represent a huge market for the housing industry, but also a challenge. Historically, housing units don't meet the needs of affordability, mobility, technology, value-added services, and better environment. The solution? Art Box Modular. Here's the difference. The process starts online or in a design center by selecting relevant options. The smart home goes into factory production, and the finished unit is transported and plugged into the modular Art Box urban community. Art Box modular homes adapt to any environment, anywhere in the world. It's where freedom begins. using innovative green construction materials and processes, including mechanical and digital wall systems that reduce waste and construction time. 30 to 50% savings are achieved. Find out how to become part of the smart housing solution with the ArtBox Modular Investing Opportunity today.
Oh my God, thank you. So those are some of the exciting things that we are working with right now. So our vision kind of addresses these challenges, ArtBox Modular, and with many other, and we are literally paving the way to the new world. I'm sure many of you have heard of WeWork. For those who haven't, WeWork, they're a company who have revolutionized co-working spaces, not just in local communities, but also in global communities around the world, creating a hive of people, and essentially is creating this concept of freedom, where you can work anywhere in the world. But what about creating a similar revolution for residential architecture? So our vision addresses that. Our vision is to create 300 interconnected ArtBox Modular communities around the world, where each community will have its own engaged members to focus on each community's needs, nourishing the soul of the community, where your neighbors will extend beyond borders and countries. So life is about people, and ArtBox Modular is about illuminating what is possible through global community and meaningful connections through the sensible use of architecture, design, and technology. See, architecture needs to evolve. We need a paradigm shift in how we build, using architecture as a conductor of change to bring forth a new era. So I'd like to ask you this very simple question. Are we building the world that we want to live in, or are we merely surviving? So today, before I leave, I'd like to share with you our 3 core beliefs. The first, where we believe that we can revolutionize how we live through the sensible use of architecture and technology. We believe that our homes need to be a place that exude inspiration, love, and global community, to relinquish the barriers that pull us apart and to magnify the qualities that pull us together. We believe that we can build a global community that resembles the world that we want to live in, that celebrates and embraces our most human necessities. This is what we make possible. This, as my father has taught me, is our legacy.